Okay, so if you can hear me, we can start the webinar. So my name is Gauri. I'm the host here at Karnamai Holistic Platform, and we are welcoming Dr. Prashant Singh Rajput again with us today to share his wisdom on water harvesting strategies for farmers. He has been with us before as well when he spoke about organic farming and how he transitioned his own family farm into a small regenerative organic farm. So today he is back with us, and we are welcoming Dr. Rajput. He is a nephrologist in Maharashtra, so he has a background in medicine. He has seen the growing epidemic of diseases in farmers and nearby community due to growing pesticides level in the fields, and he saw the loss in carbon content in the soil, and he decided to transition his own farm to fully organic farm from a conventional farm. His farm is an award-winning farm. He has won the Amit Udyan Ratna Award in 2022 at the National Conference on Climate Resilient and Sustainable Development of Horticulture. So he has a really good background in farming and also permaculture strategies and how to create water harvesting strategies. This webinar we decided to do because recently the tomato crisis and the price hikes that happened due to extreme heat waves and flooding made me think about why we cannot have better design system that can help fight such problems where we had pest attacks due to high heat waves and then logistic issues with flooding. Can there be designs that can help fight these floods and drought problems that could be very helpful for farmers to follow? Some of you said that you will be connecting farmers to this webinar. At the end of Dr. Rajput's presentation, you guys can open, like you can unmute yourself or you can connect the farmer if they're connecting right now and ask questions. So the entire purpose of this webinar is to help the farmers set their mind and share awareness. So thank you so much for being here with us. And I look forward now to Dr. Rajput's to take over and start this webinar. I'm just going to put him on the spotlight. Just give me a moment.
Can I share the screen?
Yes, you can, Dr. Rajput. I'm just trying to put you on the spotlight. So you.
It's disabled.
Okay. I'm just gonna allow you. Give me one moment. Can you share now? Okay.
Yeah, can everybody see?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, thank you very much. And today we'll be discussing on the water paradigm and how we can actually improve the water available. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, Dr. Rajput.
Yeah, there's some issue with the audio.
Yeah, because I'm hearing some noise here as well, and usually it gives me permission to mute people. Mr. Rajiv Kundu, can you please mute yourself? Because I'm not sure where the noise is coming from.
Just a minute. Hello,
Yeah, it's okay.
hello.
Yes, Dr. Rajput, we can hear you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'll be talking on the water paradigm and how farmers can effectively use water. So what I would like to start with is a small quiz. Which planet would you uh, try to continue your living? It's Earth or it's Mars? Can anybody tell? Obviously, it's the Earth, and it's because of only two things. First is the water, and the second is the air. When we look at Mars, Mars neither has water nor has any atmosphere to sustain life. It's very, very important that in case you have to sustain life, you need to stay back on the earth. We actually recently did a uh, landing of the moon with a rover, and the whole idea was to search for water. So it is very important that water is the thing in life which can sustain the future. So I would like to give you the outline. First, I would discuss on the ecosystem and the water cycle. Second is the crisis of the climate and how, along with the uh, carbon, and we often talk on the carbon and climate crisis, but it is more of a water and the climate crisis. Something on regenerative farming solutions for this climate crisis and how farmers can improve the water holding in their farms and improve the sustainability. So the fourth thing is I would discuss on building a community at a village level, how we have worked at the Tehsil level and the district level, and a revolutionary story of how our district have pioneered drip irrigation. And we would conclude with some learning points. The most important is the four ecosystem processes and the water cycle. The most important ecosystem process is your solar energy. where your solar energy gets converted to a chemical energy uh, using photosynthesis, and this is the carbon cycle. The second most important is the water cycling, and the water cycle is an extremely important part of the ecosystem process. The third is community dynamics and diversity, which is extremely important for, and the fourth is a biogeochemical nutrient cycling in nature, which holds these ecosystem process. So when we look at the natural balanced water cycle with the sun, which heats up the ocean, which causes the water vapor to rise, and this water vapor eventually rises up in the air and forms clouds. As these clouds go uh, condenses, they bring rainfall, and this rainfall eventually is carried through the landscape, and which starts from the trees, the springs, the rivers, and it recharges the aquifer and eventually reaches the ocean through the rivers. So this is the major water cycle. So this is extremely important as far as the water cycle is concerned. The second important water cycle is the interaction of the plants and the clouds. Now, it has been shown that the hygroscopic microorganisms on the surface of the trees are responsible for condensation of these clouds, and which eventually brings about the rain. So this important role of this hygroscopic bacteria or hygroscopic microorganisms and its interaction with the environment, which eventually leads to rain. So whenever you have a flowing water, okay, and the good amount of moisture in the soil, which eventually gets drained, which recharges the aquifer. This soil moisture, which is there on the forest floors, it prevents three important catastrophic problems. First is of that of flooding, because the living roots eventually would absorb huge amount of moisture from the soil. Second would be your the fires, because if there is significant uh, green cover, yeah, and your floor is moist, this significantly reduces the fire, and eventually if you have a green cover, that decreases the risk of drought. You have these ecosystem processes functioning abundantly when you're having a balanced water cycle. So this is why forest is important. Even with the bare minimum amount of rainfall, we have a green cover, and whenever you have a green cover, you have a significantly uh, these floors have roots which go deep into the system, and they absorb the water, because the water spreads over this landscape, and it gets absorbed in the soil. So what happens when you have a degraded water cycle, which means that your marshlands on the coastal areas, if it has been replaced with urbanized buildings where the water soakage is much lesser. There's a loss of green cover uh, at the coastal areas, which leads to increase in the pressure, this hot air rises further up, producing a large volume of clouds, which gives a large amount of rain in a short period of time, which leads to your flooding. Because of the loss of the green cover, you have significantly less moisture over the landscape, and this leads to fire. And because the amount of rainfall received is very large in a short period of time, and there is a large uh, timing of drought, and this leads to drought. So you have a combination of flooding, you have fires, and you have drought. Your aquifers also are not recharged because there is no retention of moisture within the soil. There is a lot of removal of the moisture because of the uh, flooding. And whenever you have a large amount of rain in a short period of time, that leads because of the velocity at which the water droplet falls on the soil, it leads to compaction, and the amount of water absorbed into your soil system is very less, and this leads to high runoff and eventually your water so this is a situation from my house. It's a concrete, it's in Mumbai, it's a concrete jungle, and you can hardly see anything which can absorb the water. What will happen eventually is this water will flow in these concrete this, and eventually end up in the ocean, leads to flooding. When we look at the global map of desertification, uh, the one third of the area across the globe has been desertified, which starts from the Middle East, the Tibetan Plateau. Historically, the Tibetan Plateau was one of the earliest places where the agriculture is documented, about 68,000 years ago, 1,000 years ago. Even the sub-Saharan Africa has become completely desertified. The Middle East has become a complete desert. Uh, and this was very flourished many years ago. And the fundamental problem which has caused this is because of the intensive agriculture. One of the most important reads which one should try and read is the book by David Montgomery, which is called The Dirt, The Erosion of Civilizations. And he has elegantly explained how agriculture has led to uh, desertification, and many farmers have abandoned their land. The fundamental problem why you lead this leads to desertification in agriculture is the plow. We have seen that since when we have increased the use of mechanical equipments in the farm, and excessive tillage has led to a problem of desertification. And this is because of the rate at which the soil formation and soil erosion is a problem. Uh, your rate of soil formation is much less than the soil erosion, and this eventually leads to erosion of the topsoil, and that's how desertification occurs. In 2017, when we took over the agriculture, so this was my land. It was bare, hungry, naked. It had no vegetation whatsoever. And this was a time when we decided that we should do something so that, and there was a significant issue with the erosion. You can see the soil, there's hardly any aggregates. And this was a fundamental problem that time. Then, since 2020, we started the regenerative farming, and there we probably found that the regenerative practices actually help prevent the problem related to water. The most important of the regenerative practices, which helps to improve the soil moisture retention, is no tillage. So whenever you have a growing plant, you have the deep roots, and whenever you don't plow the field, so you will have micropores, and there's a gravitational pull of the water. There is no compaction. Your water infiltration is much better, and your lateral flow as well as the drainage and deep percolation is much better. And the potential runoff is very scarce in a no-till system. Secondly, whenever you have a soil moisture or soil armor, the moisture in the soil is significantly improved, and this we will see how. And third is a living root. If you have a living root, if you continue to cut the roots and you have certain practices which would uh, allow the plant to grow, uh, and repeated cutting of these plants would eventually lead to a very deep root system, and this would allow a good amount of water infiltration. Cover crops also helps in preventing the bare soil. As I told you, the role of microbes, you have more and more plants, especially the fungi. If you have a fungi-based mycorrhizal, or they increase the availability of water to the plant, which helps in the photorespiration and phototranspiration. This would increase the or improve the microclimate of the plants, improve the relative humidity because of the transpiration, and this helps in the water cycle. Obviously, livestock integration also helps. In so how no tillage helps it. When we look at the fundamental problem is an altered balance between the soil production and soil erosion. And this, over the last 10,000 years, have dramatically increased the soil erosion, and that has led to desertification of the soils. Whenever you reduce the tillage, there is a significant reduction in the disturbance. So your soil microbes are unaltered. Your soil erosion significantly reduces. Your amount of water infiltration improves. It improves carbon storage, and you have a better mycorrhizal fungi. So when we look at this no-till farm, so this is our farm where last few days we had about almost 80 to 90 millimeters of rain, and not even a single drop of water, okay, is collected. When we looked at the water infiltration rates, it is 4 liters per second. So if you have this much amount of water infiltration rate, large amounts of water are stored in the in the primary and the secondary root zone of the plants. And this water storage significantly improves over time. So any rain, it's not allowing any water to go away from the soil. The soil moisture is retained, and even in periods of drought, you can have a significant amount of resilience in this cropping system. So this is the same farm. When we look from the opposite side, uh, there is absolutely no water runoff from this field. 110 millimeters. A total last year we had 1,000 millimeters of rain over this farm, which is you can see this IoT device in the background. which has a rain gauge, and there was not even a single drop of water which has come out of the field. So the entire water is soaked within the system. When we look at the soil armor, so whenever you have a soil armor, this significantly it covers the soil and it retains the soil moisture from the direct effect of evaporation on these plants. A living root, especially a cover crops, significantly improves your water cycle, and it also helps to retain large amounts of water so that you have abundance of the biodiversity coming back into the system. Not only it fixes carbon, it also helps cycle nutrients. Because of the evapotranspiration which happens, the overall microclimate is so good that the water is retained within the system. Your soil structure and fertility improves, and your biodiversity significantly gets better. So for a farm, what you need to do is where water runs, you should try and make it walk. Because this was by famous Japanese environmentalist, that is Fukuyuka, where he elegantly said that slow the water, spread it out, let it soak in the ground, and this avoids soil erosion. It creates fertility, and it plays a significant part in recharging the landscape. So whenever or wherever there is brown, if you can convert it to green, that this is the most important part of the water cycle, and this these practices can significantly improve the water cycling at the farm level. So this is our farm where we have multiple crops, starting from the turmeric to custard apples to moringa, and we have other crops as well, which are uh, grown in a syntropic way. And whenever you have such syntropic systems, it not only improves your water cycle, your amount of water requirement is much less. So this is how we need to do it at the farm level. So at our village level, what we started was we educated the villagers regarding the regenerative, and we have an NGO in our taluka, which is Vittal, which is uh, helping farmers to improve the availability of groundwater and help to decrease the amount of uh, poverty in the area by increasing availability of water. We started educating farmers along with NAM Foundation, and this was through voluntary contributions of the farmer. The last 3 to 4 years, especially in our village, with great help from Vittal, and we were able to do the nala deepening and widening work, which would uh, store the water and soil which was eroded from the fields into the streams, so that lesser and more amount of moisture gets retained through percolation within the soil. So this is how the work starts, and the small streams which are there, which are originating from the mountains, we dig them deep with interruptions at regular interval, and this can store a huge amount of water. And the earth which is excavated which helps to build up the roads and making bunds, which reduces erosion. So this work has been going on for last 3 years, and in the last few months, we had a significant amount of work being done. So this was a picture which was taken up the last few days where we had good rains. Unfortunately, this year, being an El Nino year, uh, the total amount of rainfall is about now 210 millimeters over this monsoon season from your June to August, and the deficit is about more than 60%. Even then, with when you had large volumes of rain in the short period of time, which leads to runoff, we were able to hold the water within these streams, preventing this water entering into the rivers and the oceans. So this is going on in not only in our village but also across our uh, tehsil, where the farmer folks, they come together and they have been digging up the streams, widening the streams, deepening the streams, so that more and more water gets retained into the landscape, and the erosion significantly comes down. So you can see this amount of water which is harvested this year and last few days. Uh, Huge amount of water has been harvested. So what we did at the Tehsil level is, so this was work done by Vittal. Uh, this is a group, an NGO which helps in the watershed work, and this project in the COVID period was supported by IKEA, and villages which were drought prone and which were close to the mountains and the streams, which were these were the uphill streams. These were identified, and uh, then they were carefully planned. So this was the entire project was farmer driven. About more than 150 progressive farmers. They were the stakeholders in this project, along with the NGO, which helped to identify and uh, uh, this led to an expert who could assess the sites, and they could take chart a proper cluster, take permissions from the government, and you could dig, and the final result was that the entire amount of water in the rainfall will not escape uh, your escape to the rivers. So it remained in the landscape. So this was the amount of villages. So this has now further increased. This was a 2020 NDW work where huge amount of water was retained within the system. The most surprising thing was, as far as the cost was concerned, it was almost one-fifth of the cost, and we were able to retain about 1 billion liters of water within the landscape, avoiding it to. So what was the impact? This was 2022 data where the 17 villages, the waterworks was done. Uh, in The population was about 71,000, 3,000 farmers, almost 8,000, 880 was the acre of land which was directly benefited and the tube wells recharge were about 12,000. So because of the last 3 years work, we were able to have three crops, and the farmer would significantly increase the income from the added irrigation water. The most important thing is because Jalgaon district as a whole, it's a home for the world's biggest irrigation company. So, adoption of precision farming has made a significant impact as far as the productivity of the farm is concerned. So, switching to precision farming, which includes use of drip irrigation, and this has led to significant impact on the farming. And why you need precision farming? Because it optimizes farming practices. It reduces the environmental risk like runoff, leaching, and pollution. It improves competitiveness through more efficient practices, improve decision making and fast traceability, and improve quality of the produce. So this is where we use a lot of the precision tools to help our farming needs. The precision farming for better output, it is very important as far as the productivity is concerned, the quality is concerned, reducing the input cost and increase profitability in farming. It also helps in developing infrastructure conducive for horticulture. So this was our farm where we could cultivate bananas, and we were able to export it in my first year. So what happens with drip irrigation? The major difference is the amount of the water usage. In water consuming crops like banana and sugarcane and even rice, the drip irrigation has significantly reduced the amount of water required as compared to the traditional flood irrigation. The yield has also increased. As far as banana is concerned, the yield has increased almost 1.5 times to 88 tons per hectare. The increased in the water efficiency and the percent difference is quite striking as far as uh, most of the crops are concerned, especially the water saving with the drip irrigation. So this is how we plan the drip irrigation. Uh, Actually, my father started drip irrigation very early in his, and he was far ahead of time in 1985 or 1986 when just drip irrigation was introduced in India. We were the first farmers. By 1992, almost 85% of my farmland was under drip irrigation. Use of IoT is extremely important because it helps in telling you the soil moisture, and it also helps to reduce the water requirement or unnecessary uh, watering of the plants because of the moisture sensitivity, the photorespiration, the rainfall, and the growing degrades. And this also helps in the disease and the pest management. It's very important to use IoT as a device for precision agriculture. And this has significantly led to the most important part is planting of the trees. So if you plant a tree, the consequence is that water vapor is much less, and because of the hygroscopic microbes which are there on the surface of the plants, which induces the rain. If you want to prevent flooding, if you want to prevent the fire, if you want to prevent the drought, which are the current climate crisis, you need to plant a tree. And each one of us should He's my son who plants about 1,000 trees every year. And this is our farm where we cultivate crops, we store water, and uh, this is how we do it. We'll be very happy to answer any questions if you have, especially as regards to water, because this is very, very dear to us. And yeah.
That was a really nice presentation, Dr. Rajput. Very informative. I think I'm going to watch it like again and again to fully grasp it. You collect data as well from these IoT machines on your farm, like
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah. We
amount of
have all the data.
you have all the data. Is it possible to like analyze this data by like if somebody is doing any like just doing a project or something, can they look at your
Yeah,
data?
yeah, yeah. So basically, what we do is for whole of the district, um, one of uh, my companies is the distributorship for these IoT devices from a company called Fasal, where we have data of all the farmers and all the fields, how they have been watering, the patterns of watering, what moisture level they were watering the plants. So we have all the data of all the farmers. So uh, it can be a very, very good study, especially, and this has actually helped farmers. Those some of my friends who have installed this, and even myself, we are able to reduce the water usage, unnecessary pumping of water using the groundwater by up to 70%.
That's amazing. So basically, if we do a study on this IoT machine that you are providing on different farms, that should give a really good analysis of how useful it is. Um,
Yeah, the other thing which I didn't touch about is the fungal farming, which is the very key in holding the soil moisture, especially in the forest systems, and how this fungi are able to take up the moisture from the soil, from the air, the humidity from the air in the drought situation, and they provide water to the plants. So this reverse cycle of absorbing the soil moisture, giving it through the fungi and directing to the plants. And these plants would again do the photorespiration or phototranspiration. The water would again end up into the system, and that's how fungi will cycle that moisture within the system. So this is in brief how you can through practices like a no tillage, having a soil armor, always having a living root, uh, integrating livestock. This helps in having deeper root systems. You have more porosity in the soil, more amount of moisture goes in the soil. The water spreads and it seeps down into the system, so that you don't have issues of runoff and erosion, and your water ending up into the rivers and streams. So whenever the soil is saturated, obviously during that time you are going to see a runoff, but it is extremely rare, especially in situations where we had an abundant of rain, like 110 millimeters in a day or 200 millimeters in a day. We have not seen any water getting uh, off our farm. So till mid of November or December, we hardly require any moisture. We have actually, if you are retaining this moisture, millets which we grow in the Rabi season, uh, the moisture which is there within the system, especially when we grow. jawar or chickpea, uh, and because it's our deep black cotton soil, we do not need any irrigation for the second crop.
Nice. So, but this is not going to be possible if you did monocropping, though. Like you are
So we
putting
have multiple crops.
multiple
Yeah,
crops. Uh,
yeah. So
because
even
monocropping would lead to the same issue again.
yeah, yeah. So I didn't talk much on biodiversity and how it helps in water cycling. It would have been too much for this small audience.
Yeah. And
It
these things that you were creating under the ground, like these are swales. These are called swales, right? Like these
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
digging.
We have swales. Yeah, yeah. So whenever, because our farm is on raised beds, automatically we form swales. Okay. These swales then terminate into another swale, and then this would go into another swale. So where at the end of our farm, where we will have a pit where the water goes and gets stored there in case there is a runoff. So it doesn't leave the field at all.
Okay. That's very interesting. So, like, uh, I'm asking a lot of questions. I would let everyone ask too, but this is my last question. So this would avoid the problems we had with the tomato crisis, where due to heat waves there was pest attacks and all. Like, so all these
Yes,
pest
yes, yes.
attacks will be automatically handled when you have that soil
Yeah, yeah.
moisture.
Yeah, you have a good soil moisture. You have predicting tools. Okay. So if you are overwatering the soil, okay, you're going to, especially people where farmers are cultivating tomatoes, they have a significant problem of wilting. Okay. So that is
What
an
is
issue.
wilding?
Wilting is a fungal disease, soil-borne fungal diseases. And this is a significant problem in tomatoes. The other problem in tomatoes is use of nitrates, and because they are using too much of nitrates, they have a high amount of leaf nitrate content, which leads to sucking pest attack.
Okay, so it's not just
And
the heat waves then that is causing
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
problem.
No, 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 it's not the heat wave. It is a lack of precision agriculture. My village, during the summers, we were producing tomatoes, and our farmers have become extremely rich because they were able to produce tomatoes during the adverse climatic conditions with the use of precision agriculture and predictive tools.
That's amazing. That's a good success story in this adversity of tomato prices going up. That's amazing.
Yeah, but yeah, this happened with bananas also. Okay, and other crops as well, where we have been for banana at least, uh, because of the reduced use of water, reduced use of uh, because we were watering less, we were fertigating it also less. So the amount of the fertilizer use, the amount of water use, the significant reduction in the soil-borne fungal diseases like Panama wilt disease and Sigatoka. Uh, so this has significantly come down.
Okay. Actually, we are done with Dr. Rajput's webinar. So if anyone else has a question, please unmute yourself. Please raise your hand. I think we have two people here, Sandhya and Dr. Vineet. Vineet ji, zarur, like Dr. Vineet want us to talk in Hindi. Dr. Vineet, webinar अब हो चुका है, presentation हम आपको भेजेंगे. अगर आपको कोई भी जानकारी चाहिए कैसे पानी फार्म्स में आप यूज कर सकते हैं इफेक्टिवली, जिससे कि बाढ़ के टाइम या बहुत ज्यादा जब ड्रॉट हो या सूखा पड़े, तो हम कैसे उस पानी, जो पानी आता है जब कई बार जो फ्लडिंग करता है, उसको आप कैसे बचा सकते हैं, उसके बारे में डॉक्टर राजपूत ने हमें बताया था कि उसके लिए फार्म्स में आप कैसे अपने सॉइल में मिट्टी में मॉइस्चर को रोक सकते हैं, कैसे आप ऐसा इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर बना सकते हैं अपने फार्म पे जिससे कि आप पानी कलेक्ट कर सकें। जैसे जो गड्ढे आप खोदते हैं और फिर वो कैसे एक नाले की तरह वो अलग अलग नालों से कनेक्ट रहता है। तो ये पूरा डॉक्टर राजपूत ने हमें इस प्रेजेंटेशन में दिखाया था, और हम वो प्रेजेंटेशन आपके साथ यूट्यूब पे शेयर करेंगे। अगर आप लोग को कोई क्वेश्चन है, सो प्लीज गो अहेड, आप अपने आप को अनम्यूट कर सकते हैं। मिस संध्या Mondal and Dr. Vineet, अगर आपका कोई क्वेश्चन है, प्लीज अनम्यूट योरसेल्फ एंड यू कैन आस्क राइट नाउ टू डॉक्टर राजपूत। Okay, Sandhya ji is saying it is very nice presentation. She is satisfied. Thank you, Sandhya ji. I'm very happy that you liked it and you stayed for the entire presentation. We will be sharing it with you for the YouTube also, and I'll be rewatching it again. विनीत जी, आपका कोई क्वेश्चन है? आप कुछ पूछना चाहते हैं डॉक्टर राजपूत से? Yeah. Okay, so they both are satisfied. They both liked the presentation. I think it was very detailed, and I would myself want to go through the presentation again and probably look at some of this data from your IoT to analyze it, because it sounds very interesting. So it this is a great success story though, like how much I heard about tomato prices and everything, and how your farm was able to handle this situation. That's a great success story. Thank you, Dr. Rajput, for coming on our platform and sharing your experience and sharing about all these NGOs with us. And hopefully we'll connect with them and bring them on the platform as well in future.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So I think Dr. Rajput's audio is having a problem. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And we look forward to having Dr. Rajput again in future. And we will share the video if anyone was not able to attend or could not be here for the entire video. We have people joining in right now. That's strange. But Gyan Sagar ji, we are done with the webinar. I'm not sure if you have any questions for Dr. Rajput on water harvesting strategy. You can ask him right now. Otherwise, we will share the entire presentation with you on YouTube. Dr. Amara, we just completed the entire presentation by Dr. Rajput. So the webinar has been completed. We will share this webinar on YouTube and we will send it an email. Yes. If any of you have questions, अगर आप में से किसी को कोई भी question पूछना है Dr. Rajput से about water harvesting strategies or organic farming, आप बता सकते हैं अभी अगर आपको पूछना है तो. I guess nobody has a question, so we can probably end this webinar for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming to this webinar. We will share the video with all of you. And we look forward to seeing you all again with Dr. Rajput when he's back for the next webinar. I think we really wanted to do more on other topics like fantastic fungi and food as medicine, since he's also a doctor. So we'll probably have more webinars with him in future, and we really look forward to that. Thank you so much, Dr. Rajput. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here with us. I'm going to stop recording. Thank you.